Okay, so let's start with the laterals. This is number 26. So let's look at number 26 right there. A tiny bit of loop. And start the same way. A tiny bit more wax to the thin areas. And we put it back. Remember, mesial portion more curved, distal portion less curved. So when we put it in, we know which side is the mesial, which side is the distal, and by that fact we know which one is the facial or labial and which one is the lingual. Push it down. Remember how you hold it. 2 fingers, labial and lingual. Push it down. Check to make sure the margins are below. And again, we start waxing the lateral. Point angles. Now, with the mandibulars, the laterals are the wider teeth. They have a little bit more width and a little bit more roundness. Than the centrals. If you notice it right here, they have a bigger curve on the distal. The distal point angle is slightly higher than the point angle on the canine. You see the point angle of the canine is right about there. The point angle on the lateral is right about there. You see? It's not as extreme as on the maxillary, but there is a difference in height. Because you don't want the incisors to be too much lower than the canines. So if you wax your point angles too low, your incisors will be much lower than the canines, and then the patient's gonna look like a vampire. Incisal edge, right there. Try to get it the same height as the centrals. So now we're waxing the distal labial line angle. I meant to say distal labial line angle, not the distal. If you're referring to the distal area, then you say distal. If you're referring to a specific location of the line angle, then, or the line angle itself, you say distolabial line angle. So we have a curvature right here, and then it curves in, and then it curves back down when you get to the gingival. So now we'll build the mesiolabial line angle. It's more like a curve that goes straight up to the mesio-incisal point angle. Or if you want to be more precise, the mesio-incisal labial point angle. Touched it a little bit. That's okay, we'll correct it later. If it's just a tiny touch, it'll probably release once you pull out the tooth. So now we'll wax the gingival height of contour right here. Then the central lobe to complete the tooth. You see how it's a little bit wider, a little bit rounder on the distal, and we still need to get the mesial a little bit more sharp and the right height. Okay, so let's blend in the developmental depressions. You can put like little irregularities in there too, so that it looks a little more natural. Then we flip it around, and now we'll go with the mesio-lingual line angle, or mesio-lingual marginal ridge. Distolingual line angle, or distolingual marginal ridge. Cingulum, and then we do the lingual fossa. So we're right about there. So the next thing we do, so we're gonna pop it out of the model and we'll correct the sides, the gingivals, the margins, and then we'll refine it. Let's let it cool a little bit so we don't break it when we start carving. So wherever you over carved it, you can just re-add. And then correct it again. This time we have to be more gentle. Make sure if it's overhanging like this or too bulky, we'll just take it down. Remember, once you take down the margins, you're going to have that skinny area of the tooth right by the root, and then you just have to make sure you preserve the curvature of this lateral on the distal portion. You see? There's a curvature right here. Make sure we make the point angle here a little sharper and the point angle here a little rounder. Just like that, you see? So now we do the lingual concavity. fossa. Concavity is just another way of saying concave, and it's in the lingual area. So if you say lingual concavity, most likely people will know what you're talking about. Still little voids that we need to fill. And we have a nice lingual area of the tooth. That's it. So we put it back and double check our work. Right there. This might be a little bit too round right here. So let's make a tiny bit more of an S shape there. And if we look at it from the top, we can take this portion in a little bit more. Also, another thing with the laterals, you could make them a little bit rounder on the facial surface. You see how this is more round here? It's not always like that, but you know, in the ideal cases they make them a little bit rounder just so that the students know that that's the ideal way it's supposed to be. So we don't flatten this whole thing down completely. I don't like to make them quite this round because this is kind of missing a line angle in the distal. So I'll just make it a little bit rounder. Just so when it gets to the canine, there's kind of like a nice transition from the central to the lateral to the canine. So here we don't have enough of a incisal embrasures, and the contact area is a little bit too high, so I'm going to lower that a little bit by making more of a convexity in the interproximal of the lateral incisor. And let's see what it looks like, and if we need to we can do the same with the central incisor, but let's just do the lateral right now. Let's try to get that contact area a tiny bit lower. So what we do is we melt the wax a little, and before it completely hardens we squish it back in. So now we can maybe open up the incisal embrasure a little bit more, since our contact is a tiny bit further down. So there we go. Let's also lower the height of that lateral incisor just a little bit in the middle. I think that's pretty good. I have a little bit of an irregularity on the incisals of these, but I think that looks good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, perfection sometimes makes teeth look fake. So let's go on and we'll do the lateral incisor on the left side, which is tooth number 23.